Yes, hi, it's Jonathan Bostock here, Birmingham Gems, and Your Place, Your Space. And we're here in Spark Brook. And we're here for a conversation with the quite amazing Mohammed Ali of Soul City Arts. And we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk about a lot of topics, in particular Mohammed's 2022 experience with the Commonwealth Games, no less. What a fantastic artist, educator, performer he is. So, Mohammed, what a year. 2022, we're coming to the end of it. It's been a fantastic year for yourself, for Birmingham, for Soul City Arts. Tell us a little bit about your year that's about to end.
I think with everything that we've been through with COVID, 2022 has been for me really quite a moment of release, really. A moment where we were able to kind of just come out and go all out really with what we were working on all this time that's been cooking up over the kind of grim period that we've been through. You know, it's such a dark and depressing time really. But amidst that kind of darkness, you know, we were all responding differently. We were all coming up with new ways of working. And I think that totally informed the very work that I was doing in 2022, because I started to reflect on life more. I started to reflect on our mortality more. You know, some of these things which one might say is slightly morbid and dark. But the reality is we were forced to think about these really, really crucial life questions. Who are we? Where are we going? You know, what's our legacy? What do we want to do? Where do we want to be? What do we want to leave behind? These were fundamental questions that I think in 2022 I was able to really get out there and respond to what we've been through. With, of course, the Commonwealth Games that took place, and I had this large commission, this show called Waswasa that I was kind of developing over the lockdown period, and which culminated, as a theatrical show at the Birmingham Hippodrome in 2022. For me, that was, a huge, moment for me, a big show that got to really pull together some of the things I've been wanting to say for a long, long, long time. So it just felt good to finally release in 2022, put out there big ideas, big concepts, big questions into the show, into the space that we launched here, that we're sitting in right now, into the organization that I founded about 15 years ago, Soul City Arts. It was just a big year for us in many ways, and I think it was almost quite poetic that at the back of all this kind of darkness that we've experienced, I think there was some really moments of, real hope for us as an organization, as an artist based in the city, still based in the city. I think this is a turning point.
And you say 15 years of Soul City Arts. I mean, you are an extremely experienced artist, a very talented artist. You've had a very successful year. What now? What's the future hold for yourself and the organisation that you run?
It's been actually about 20 years since I gave up the day job, working in the games company, designing games, where I felt I wanted to go on a journey that was slightly more meaningful, that was able to bring a bit of change to the city that I'm from. And I became an independent artist, street artist, painting murals. And it was, an exciting journey, traveling the world, learning from different communities as I traveled, from continents around the world, but yet still coming back to the city that I love and that I'm from, the city where I was born, the city where my parents are buried, the city where my father chose to migrate to in the late 50s. So my passion really lies in the city. 20 years of, creating, making, thinking about how I can use art to try and transform the city that I'm passionate about. The city that people ask, why are you still based in Birmingham? The city that people are a bit puzzled about, or why you would be still here as an artist that has had a taste of all these wonderful cities and have probably a lot more work in some of these international destinations. It excites me because I can't turn my back on the city that made me. I'm from this earth, you know. How can I just turn my back and say, I want to go somewhere that's going to benefit me? What about my children who are here and my children's generation and future generations? So it kind of felt a bit selfish to just say, I'm out of here because this doesn't benefit me. That's not how change happens. Change happens where you create the change that you want to see. So after I left my job and I became an artist, I had a vision at that point, about 5-6 years into my career. I said, I need to create a bit of a system as well, not just me as an independent artist. Because as an artist, it was great. I was creating these one-off moments of wonder, these spectacles that came, whether it be a mural or a performance. These wonderful moments that happened. But then the dust settled and nothing. In fact, people would even say to me, you know, what next? How can we do something? How can we get involved? And I realized, where's the infrastructure for that? I couldn't promise them that there will be something for them, because I'm an artist that gets pulled over both here nationally and around the world, and I'm just going wherever I'm invited, and I you know, wherever I can. Actually, I realized the responsibility is on me to contribute to that infrastructure, to that kind of longer term goal. So those people who ask, how can we get involved? I've got answers for them. So I set up the organization Soul City Arts, because I realized that after I'm gone, when I leave this world, you know, my art will go with me, but actually as an organization, I can leave something in place where there's a system for people to, you know, others to lead and take on the baton. So I'm quite passionate about legacy, more so than ever now, after the passing of my mum 2 years ago exactly now. Because this idea of legacy, it's quite an abstract concept. I used to hear this term bandied about a little bit, legacy, and it's quite an abstract idea. What does that actually mean? If I'm honest, I don't think I fully understood what it meant exactly up until my mum passed, and I started to really understand what legacy meant. That after her demise and her passing, that isn't the end, because her spirit continues and her legacy, let's not use the word legacy, the energy and the spirit of my mother continues in what I do and what I represent. So that's where I started to really understand that it's a moment to embrace the cycle of life, that we come and we go, and society absolutely doesn't comprehend that enough. I tell you now, society, and I say it again, does not comprehend that enough or ponder on it enough, because if it did, it would reflect on itself more, on human beings would reflect on ourselves more. If we truly understood that we were born and we're going to die, we will go 6 foot under the ground, as grim as that is, and as depressing as that is for people listening. Once we comprehend that, or try to, I know it's a hard thing to grasp. I'm not saying I have either. You know, it's such a complex thing to understand and grasp that we will be in the ground, nothing. Once we understand that, we realize we've got to work hard at what we have here now while we've still got breath coming out of our mouths. We have a blessing of the breath that we exhale and inhale. And then we use our time profoundly while we're here. We'll think about what we're going to leave behind when we're gone. Legacy is that thing that I really, in this year, 2022, I've begun to fully comprehend, and I'm committed to making that change in this city that I was born and where my parents are buried to bringing that change.
Mohammed, for yourself and for what you created and creating and building at Soul City Arts, what's going to be your legacy, and what's then Soul City Arts going to take forward?
For me, change doesn't come overnight. It takes time. Meaningful change takes time to slowly chip away so that we can really embed that change in a meaningful way. So, the couple of decades I've been at this game have really meant that I've been able to learn along the way. It's taken 20 years to get to this point, and the work only really starts now. It's taken 20 years of making mistakes, learning from people, just taking time to just try new things and see how people respond to it. And as I said, make plenty of mistakes along the way as well. And now I think the time is right to really start that work. This work that I talk about is really about letting people feel heard, letting people feel empowered. As cliche as that sounds, we all talk about that, empowering people. And everybody claims that we are empowering people. But I do feel that really for me is a strong focus of Soul City Arts and the work that I do. I mean, really empowered, like unashamedly, boldly, in your face saying, this is me. No more hiding, no more suppressing a part of our identity, be it immigrant background, be it our faith as a Muslim personally, be it just our identities of who we are and what we represent, whether it's our working class roots, whatever it is that we suppress, because we all do suppress a part of who we are, especially in the age we live in, social media, the influences we have of trying to aspire to be something that we're not really. Actually, for me, it's about saying be comfortable and celebrate who you are, as I did, and it took me 20 years to get to this point, to say, I'm comfortable now to say this is who I am. And the work that we do, I hope it can be a vehicle, an infrastructure that will nurture and facilitate others to say, hey, this is me. And in particular for people who feel marginalized, in particular for people who feel they've had to suppress and hide who they really are. That is my focus, because that's kind of been my own journey of kind of trying to be something that I wasn't and hiding my kind of past, my heritage, my everything. I tried to be something that I wasn't, and there came a point where I said, no more. So I'd hope that after my passing, that others would take this platform, this structure, this machine that we leave behind, and be able to just keep building. And that was, I hope, including my own children. I hope they do. But if they don't, there's others out there. Maybe I don't force the arts on nobody, but I hope that people will feel, and in the future, they will respond with the belief that the arts has the power to make change unlike nothing else. I'll say it again, there really isn't any other medium that has the power of what art can bring, and society must embrace that. It has to wake up and realize that the magic that can be, the change that we can bring through the arts.
Can I pick up on that? Through creativity, through the arts, so much can be learned. I'd like you to look at that in the context of your city that you love, Birmingham. What can Birmingham do? How can Birmingham help its artists, its creatives? How can it be the centre of creativity? Not just within the UK, but within the world. Let's set our sights high. How can that happen?
I think the city of Birmingham and how we bring that meaningful long-term change in the city. First of all, just as I mentioned about empowering us to celebrate who we are, that's the first step that the people of this city should really embrace wholeheartedly, the fabric of this city. And what I mean by that is, because many might say, well, we already do, we're proud Brummies. But what I mean by that is, celebrate the grit of the city, the grime of the city. Let's not be apologetic. Let's not pretend Birmingham is Tokyo, Paris, or Milan. It's a grimy industrial city. And what? That's how we like it. Graft is embedded in our DNA, whether you're from this city from hundreds of years ago, or whether you're immigrants like me, my father. Graft was part of this city, and it's something to embrace. So let's first of all, let's just embrace what we have and just quite unashamedly say, yeah, we're from Birmingham. I think once beyond that, once we collectively can really embrace and celebrate this together, I think that's really important, that we kind of come together on this. And the voice of the city feels like it's just proud and comfortable with itself, rather than having to compare with other places.
Mm-hmm. And coming together, how do you feel that can happen? How can creativity help in that respect? How can we come together as one community?
First of all, coming together, that change through bringing people together in unison isn't going to happen by people doing that for us. No institution or no entity or no government or city authorities is going to make that happen for you. You've got to do that yourself. You might find certain initiatives out there that try to bring community cohesion or empower young people, but the change really happens from yourself within the communities. We know what we need. No men in grey suits sitting in glass offices are going to really understand the reality of the people over here. This polarization has existed forever, where you've got people over there making decisions for people over there. And that disconnect has always been evident, and the reality on the ground has always been this completely different reality to what people over there think are the issues. So the change that really has to happen on that level, which is why, I'm passionate about embedding the Soul City Arts and this venue that we're sitting in right now, right in the heart of the community, where the people live, work, and play. So that change of bringing people together and working together in unison has to happen from within. And that unison of working together is hard work, because egos are always at play here. Sadly, people in their natural kind of state don't just come together in unity. They will be perhaps working separately or working in their own silos. So that also needs some effort. And that also needs an honest reflection, myself included, to say, how much am I really reaching out? Reaching out to people you never normally would reach out to, and say, I'd say, be honest and say, I don't do that enough myself. We don't do that. Together, again, I'm using more cliches here, together we can build better, right? But that really is true. When we work together, we can collectively change the whole landscape. Whereas when we just chipping away ourselves, it's not going to be as profound a change.
End of the Commonwealth Games 2022. Obviously, legacy is a word that's really used a lot. What is the legacy of the Commonwealth Games? What is the legacy of the culture? What is the legacy of the creativity surrounding the Games? How can back to the question about city, how can we ensure that that legacy is really effective?
I think what's needed is, again, people coming together to ensure, to monitor, to regularly convene and ensure that that work aren't just these one-off moments of wonder, and it continues. Hold ourselves to account, and others, myself included. This space that I'm in came about because we used this space for this epic show called Waswasa as part of the Birmingham 2022 festival, part of the games. This space that I'm in, I put out there myself saying, if you don't see me delivering in this space over the next, decade or few decades, if you don't see me, you hold me to account. Soul City Arts isn't an organization that just churns out a bit of work here and there and ticks a few boxes. If you don't see us meaningfully bringing change through this physical space that we've got, then I want to be challenged. I want someone to say, what have you really done? And not be afraid of that. And nobody should be afraid if we're all on the same page, which is we want to bring change to our city so that people like my children and the later generations, as soon as they're at the age they do want out the city, that's the reality sometimes. If we want to ensure and try and change that in the long term, then we kind of have to have difficult conversations, and that means maybe kind of monitoring and kind of convening regularly to say, hey, we need to have a bit of a structure in place that makes sure that this high that we had, we're kind of continuing to go high.
So, if you're creating a space to have those conversations through art, through creativity, what happens as a result of the words that people speak about during those conversations? How do you see that being then taken up? Because you can provide the facility for people to talk, and for people to communicate, converse. What happens as a result of that?
I'm not suggesting that we just have talk shops and consultation and meeting for the sake of meeting, but rather something that gathers this knowledge, gathers this information, and we respond accordingly, that collect that data, I guess, make sure that that's recorded, archived even. I mean, I say this as someone who was a former trustee of the Birmingham Museum, gathering this information, capturing it, so we can track and monitor how we are, our trajectory really.
That's wonderful. And final question from me. Advice to up-and-coming creatives, artists, poets, no matter what they are. How do they face up to their challenges that they're going to face throughout their careers, which we hope they will move into? How do they face up to those, similar to you facing up to yours?
First of all, referring to the path of the artist as a career is something I kind of actually find quite odd, because it isn't really a career. Mm-hmm. It's a passion. It's just something you do. It's like living, breathing, eating, creating. We just happen to make a living from it. So the first point really is you've got to have passion for it. You've got to be passionate, because if you see this path as a means for me to afford a mortgage and 2 cars on my drive and go on holiday and like everybody else, there's the specific times that are allocated for holidays, then I think that's the wrong kind of motivations. Go and be an accountant if you want that, or a teacher or whatever. So you've got to have passion for this game. If you don't have passion, it's not for you, right? I think I'm preaching to converted. Anyone who's creative out there is doing it, pursuing a career in creativity, is because they realise that's their calling. Like I was, that's exactly what it was for me. I tried to fight it. Believe me, I did try to fight it. Mm-hmm. Because society tells you that the arts are not really something that you can financially sustain yourself. And where I was belittled, being a doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher, all of these field sectors were seen as, you know, actual real professions. So you've got to just be a bit realistic about that. Once you realize this is your, you know, your calling, then I think not to take anything away, well, first to be straight, not to say that no one can make very good money from this, but I think if that's your motivation, it's the wrong start. But of course, you can be very, you know, successful financially from it, you know, and there's ups and downs as well within that. But most importantly for me is that you do it because you're passionate about it. And I do feel that we need more art that is dedicated to change and transformation for our city, for our people. And I say our people in a broad sense. I wear many different hats, and I love to be able to represent and reflect all people. And I think that motivation needs to be there more with the artists, rather than often we see art, and it's great that art can be this beautiful thing, this quite esoteric, quite sits out there in a way that is quite intangible in a way. Can't tangibly speak of the change that art can bring. You can't really demonstrate that because it's this that's art, that's the nature of art. But I actually feel that we should be able to, and we must be able to bring art away from that kind of place of, you know, that an abstract space that's kind of on the margins, if you like, but actually be able to bring it right here in the center and make it demonstrably transformational, make it reach people in a way that people can say, right, I get it, that's imperative for us to embrace it and place it at the forefront of bringing change for our city. That's when perceptions will change, when people will say, be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, artist. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right now, I think in all sectors, I used to think it was my own immigrant background and immigrant families that came from lower economic kind of backgrounds as immigrants in the 50s, 60s. And I used to think it was just them who used to belittle the arts, and rather they encouraged me to go to higher paid professions, quite understandably so. They wanted their children to excel and earn a comfortable income and not struggle like they did. It's a noble stance to take. I will never belittle that when my parents used to say, don't waste your time with this stuff. I completely respect that angle because of their context. I understand it. I understand why people still say it. But we can turn that around. Why can the arts not be up there, be something that's supported, funded well, where the artists are sitting at the same tables as decision makers? And don't let people treat artists as these performing monkeys. Don't let artists, for a long time I had been, and I realized just how people would say, oh, it's okay, you can dress how you like, you're the artist. And I used to feel like, no, you know what? I can wear a suit and a shirt and tie, and I can be at the table where people are talking about change as well. Artists must be at that table. Don't let them talk about you over there as these people who are head in the clouds or a bit clueless. Be an artist that thinks strategically. Be an artist that can position yourself in such places. And that's when the change will happen, rather than these two opposite worlds that exist. I'm not saying every artist out there has to be these strategic thinkers and movers and be able to take their hat off as an artist and come onto a level of just being able to talk the language of a certain people. But I think the more of us that can have that conversation, the more we can shift where art is positioned and bring it right down here in the centre.
Been some wonderful words, some great stuff that's come out of them. Thank you very much indeed, Mohammed, for inviting us here to this that's going to grow in Sparkbrook. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you, John.